All right, so we're back to our diffuse junction. This is smooth muscle contraction. So we did skeletal muscle contraction, starting with an action potential running down that somatic motor neuron, releasing neurotransmitters. So now we're going to do the same thing with this autonomic motor neuron. So action potential nervous impulse runs down this autonomic motor neuron, causing exocytosis of this neurotransmitter. So the neurotransmitter is released, and the neurotransmitter can come and bind to a receptor. These receptors are all over the sarcolemma. So it's going to bind to a receptor. Normally with skeletal muscle, we know that ACH is going to bind to these receptors, opening up these sodium channels to allow sodium in. Instead now, because we're not getting sodium to get that action potential, we're going to have these calcium channels move in. So once enough neurotransmitter binds, that's going to open up this calcium channel, and this calcium can come from our calveoli and enter into the cell. So now I've got calcium floating around the cell. Calcium is going to go and activate this protein called calmodulin. The way I remember this is a protein that's modulated or changed or affected by calcium. So this gets activated by calcium, and then calmodulin can go activate something called myosin light. I'll write it out. Myosin light chain kinase. Myosin light chain kinase. This myosin light chain kinase is responsible for activating our power stroke or our cross bridge, whatever you want to say. We'll say activate the cross bridge. So how is this different? Before we had our thick and thin myofilaments, there's my thick, here's my thin, and I normally have this binding site that's blocked by my troponin tropomyosin complex. So normally calcium comes in, exposes that binding site, the myosin head can reach up and grab. But now we don't have this going on. Now we just have our thick myofilament with these thin myofilaments around. And these heads are ready to go. They're ready to power stroke. So what we need now is we need myosin light chain kinase to come up to this cross bridge and activate it so it can actually do a power stroke. So there's no exposing of a binding site. Binding site's already there, exposed, ready to initiate this power stroke, but we need this myosin light chain kinase to activate it. So let's do this again. Action potential comes down autonomic motor neuron, causing release of this neurotransmitter, which will bind to a receptor on our sarcolemma, opening up these channels for calcium to move in. Calcium can move into the cell where it can bind to calmodulin. Calmodulin is a protein that's modulated or activated or changes its activity when calcium's bound to it. When calmodulin gets activated, it can activate myosin light chain kinase, and this can initiate the power stroke. All right, so the last thing, we just saw how this smooth muscle is contracting. Now we want to see things that can regulate this smooth muscle. So how to regulate smooth muscle contraction. So depending on what fiber is stimulated, so what autonomic motor neuron, whatever autonomic motor neuron is stimulated is going to release a certain neurotransmitter. So these different neurotransmitters can have different effects on that smooth muscle cell. And then we can have things like chemical factors. So things like hormones, pH of your environment, oxygen. We'll leave it at that. Okay, the last thing that we want to do is figure out this embryological development of skeletal muscle tissue. So we want to see what is happening to, why is it different? Why do we have this neuromuscular junction versus a diffuse junction?